Thor, the god of thunder, had faced countless enemies, serpents of the sea, monstrous beasts, even armies of giants. Yet none had ever made him doubt his strength. But when he stepped into the icy heart of Jotunheim, seeking to silence the giants who mocked him, he was confronted with a challenge unlike any he had ever known. Not a towering warrior or a fearsome beast, but an ancient, frail woman named Elli, standing alone in the shadows. Laughing at first, Thor would soon discover a truth more terrifying than any creature. Even gods must bow to time. Thor's boots struck hard on the frozen ground of Jotunheim, each step echoing like thunder in the mountains. The giants had mocked him for too long from their land of frost and stone, and tonight, he would remind them why even gods feared his wrath. By his side, Loki sauntered, eyes gleaming with cunning. The wind howled, biting against Thor's skin, yet he held Mjolnir tightly, the weapon humming with ancient power. They soon reached the towering hall of the Jotunheim, where giants with fierce, stony faces waited in silence. But among them sat an old woman, cloaked in shadow, her thin figure bent yet somehow unmoved by the cold. Thor smirked. If this was their final challenge, he would make quick work of it. A hulking Jotunheim stepped forward, a smirk curling his lips. "Thor, god of thunder," he boomed. "If you seek to prove your strength, then face Elli." Thor laughed, dismissing the old woman with a glance. She didn't look up, her hands folded as if in silent contemplation. "I came to fight warriors, not old bones," Thor said. But the giants remained silent, watching. Thor felt a strange unease prickling beneath his confidence, but pride propelled him forward. With Mjolnir ready, he approached her, ignoring Loki's sly grin. "All right, old woman," he taunted. "Show me what power lies behind those frail hands." Elli finally raised her head, her face calm yet intense, her eyes piercing through the shadows. Without a word, she gestured for him to come closer. The clash began. Thor surged forward, lifting Mjolnir with all his might, each swing of his hammer creating gusts of wind that whirled around them. But Elli moved fluidly, her steps graceful yet unsettlingly steady. Each time he struck, she was not there. She was beside him, around him, always just out of reach. Thor grunted, frustration rising, but he forced himself to focus, quickening his attacks. His muscles strained, pouring everything he had into each strike, yet it was like fighting against mist. Elli's movements remained calm, each dodge like a whisper of wind slipping past him. The giants watched with a solemn intensity, their eyes reflecting respect and an understanding beyond words. Time passed, though Thor couldn't say how long. His strikes grew slower, his breath rough, his movements laborious. Elli did not falter. Instead, she stood tall, her figure almost ghostly in its stillness, waiting patiently as he wore himself down. Thor gritted his teeth, refusing to yield. But with each passing second, he felt his strength waning, as though it were being sapped away. Loki, watching from a distance, chuckled, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "What's wrong, Thor?" he called. "Finding your match in an old woman?" Thor's scowl deepened, but his body was betraying him. A bead of sweat trickled down his face, a rare sensation. His legs felt like stone, his chest tight with fatigue. He'd fought countless battles, yet none had drained him like this. With a roar, he threw his weight into one final strike, aiming to shatter whatever strange power held Elli aloft. But his blow swung wide, his vision blurred. His knees buckled, and he fell to the ground, gasping for air, Mjolnir heavy and cold in his hand. Elli did not move, her expression untouched by triumph or pity. She simply looked down at him, her gaze calm, ancient, as if this moment had been written in the stones of Jotunheim ages ago. The giants remained silent, watching the fallen god with the reverence reserved for truths that lay beyond mortal pride or strength. Thor knelt, stunned and shaken. He had never felt this depth of weakness before, never faced an opponent who drained him so completely. Thor struggled to his feet, his pride warring with exhaustion. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice hoarse, seeking answers from the woman who had humbled him so. She looked upon him with a soft smile that held no malice, only wisdom. "I am Elli," she said quietly, "the very force of old age itself. Even gods must bow to me in time." Her voice carried a weight that stilled the air, echoing in his mind with the inevitability of the turning seasons. Thor staggered, struck by the realization. This was no simple trick, no clever illusion. She was the embodiment of time's passage, the inescapable truth that even his godhood could not evade. He had been defeated by a force he could never conquer. The giants roared in celebration, but not with mockery. Their laughter was respectful, acknowledging the ancient power that had claimed even the god of thunder. Loki's eyes gleamed with a deeper understanding, as if he had anticipated this outcome all along. "Thor," he murmured, almost to himself, "there are forces even you cannot crush." Thor's breath steadied, yet his pride bore the weight of this loss. There was no escaping Elli's influence, not for gods, nor for giants, nor for mortals. He had tasted the essence of mortality, of the inevitable decline that claimed all beings. And in that bitter taste, he felt an unfamiliar humility. As Thor and Loki departed Jotunheim, Thor looked back once more at the shadowed hall, where Elli stood quietly, her form slight yet unyielding, her figure faded into the icy fog. A quiet reminder that no power, no matter how divine, could escape her grasp. He left with a new burden upon his shoulders, a deep-seated respect for the timeless truths that even he, in all his might, could not defy. In Asgard, the story of his defeat by Elli became legend, whispered among gods and mortals alike. It became not only a tale of a warrior humbled, but also a lesson of the power that lies beyond strength, the force of time before which all must bend.